John, right here, over to you. Anybody? Bring it over here now. Okay. We're going to go ahead and get started. First of all, very much appreciate you coming out tonight. I know it's a little chilly outside, and I'm keeping my fingers crossed to miss this ice. So in the morning, otherwise it'd be kind of an interesting morning. So first thing we typically do is I announce that I have board members here, a quorum's here, so everybody knows that. Obviously, no decision here tonight at this part of it, and then we're going to say the pledge. So if you'd stand up, take your hats off. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Derek O'Neill.
Hi everyone, thank you for coming here tonight. This is our 6th community meeting for the school project, the school facilities improvement. I would just like to see if there are any building committee members here. If you just go ahead and raise your hand. And then school board members. All right. How many people have been to a community meeting so far? How many, is this your first meeting? All right, good deal. We've covered a lot of stuff over the previous 5 meetings. I've got kind of an abridged version of what we're going to talk about and kind of covering some of those previous meetings, just showing where we were at, how we've evolved, the input we've received, and the directions we've taken to get to the solutions we're presenting tonight. We also have Tim Meyer with Boyd Jones. He's your construction manager. And then David Burton, also with Alley Pointer Marketo Architecture. So the why are we here piece of this. There's a lot of people involved in this. The most important group is you guys. We take all of your information, listen, kind of see what we can do for options and get you to a point where you have a clear path moving forward. This slide shows our team from Alley Pointer Marketo, some of our engineers, Boyd Jones, and you guys. The goals from this process, so these are some things that we helped suggest to the building committee, and then they kind of refined and came up with to get this set of goals here. But security and safety for students, all students and staff, maximize existing square footage and space, provide environments that enhance and improve the educational experience for all students and staff, enhance community pride in the schools, to move forward with a community-based solution and to become the school of choice. Our process, where we take information from the community, we do thorough evaluations of the schools, we help come up with implementation pieces. You'll hear us talk about short-term, mid-range, and long-term goals. You also hear us talk about strategic and physical implementation components, but we always want to try to prioritize the needs before the wants. And a lot of these meetings with the community and with the focus groups, it drills down into really getting to what is the need first. Our process is the where are we now, where do we want to be, and how do we get there. We've gone through this where are we now, the facilities assessment, and I'll touch on that in a minute. We toured your facilities. We did some, we have these 3D scanners. We scan the facilities to get an idea of where you're at with your existing buildings, your age, your infrastructure, all of those components and assemblies that make up a building, and what their current lifespan is. But where do we want to be? Where do we want to be? The idea is to stimulate discussion, concepts, needs, wants, priorities. That's where we were in the first couple of meetings to get to this point. And then the how do we get there? These are your options for implementation and the costs associated with them. So what does it cost to physically build it? What does it mean to you as a taxpayer? And what do you get for that? So last time we presented 3 options. We have a couple more tonight that are based on the feedback from the last meeting that we're going to present to you. We are not designing you the Taj Mahal, and we are not giving you a tiny little crappy storage shed either. Basically, when it comes down to you only have so much money that you can spend. You have legal spending authority and spending limits, and we try to marry the best quality for a school with the most square footage that you can get. So it's kind of tricky. Everybody wants to push and pull those spaces a little bit. It's all about getting the whole of the Sidney School District and the Sidney community as the priority at first as you move forward through this process. So where are we now? These were the pieces that we went through with every single building. We evaluated every building, put some lifespans on systems that you had, whether it's roofs, life safety, which would be fire alarms. It did some evaluations from if we identified any major structural issues, which there were none. Mostly across the board, you just have some aging infrastructure that will need to be addressed at some point in the next 10 years. You have a lot of finishes, carpet, paints, ceilings that are coming close to the end of their lifespan. You have fire alarm panels that are 20 and 20 plus years old that are it's getting difficult to find parts for when those need to be fixed or something needs to be replaced. You have a technology infrastructure that's also something that maybe needs to be addressed in the future. We did a survey, a poll at the first meeting where we wanted people to help rank priorities and write down ideas that they felt were the most important to the community school district. Those came out with doing something at the football field track area, a new CTE, so career technology engineering building here at the high school campus versus the one that's down at the football field, learning spaces, and removing the portable classrooms that are here at the high school. Meeting number 2, we developed some big picture concepts. These were done to try and get everybody to really think and dream a little bit without necessarily having a cost associated with it. So that's what this slide represents. There was a lot of interest in still combining campuses, getting to a fewer and newer scenario is a term that you will hear us use, but also trying to, how do you best use all of your existing buildings in this process. We had some focus groups that have met. All 5 focus groups met one time, and we did a couple exercises to help prioritize some of the individual spaces. Sorry, those are the focus groups. Activities, information technology. STEAM is a term that we use. It's also STEM at the state level. We had the arts and agriculture in there for the A, a financial focus group, and then one that was concerned with marine spaces. The financial focus group, we talked about a number of things. This is a slide that shows you projected costs into the future as well as where you've been in the past. So the important thing to note about something on this is down in the bottom left of that slide, you can see that we had a couple of big years of correction of costs from a construction standpoint. So we came through a bit of a recession. Things were down at that time. We had a couple of big cost corrections in there. So the important thing to think about that I want you to see with this is you're never going to wait and get something for cheaper than it is. You have a certain amount of money you can spend, and that's not really ever going to change. So if you want to maximize what you can get for that, waiting is not going to be the answer for that. So you need to really figure out what that wants to be and how long you're willing to put off some of your needs. This is a tax rate schedule that we've passed out before and that we've shown before. Has surrounding school districts as well as your past 10-year history here in Sidney. The important thing to note, and I know you probably can't see it down here at the bottom, but the average of your past 10 years is $13.88. Your current levy, so your current year of your levy rate is $1 below your 10-year average. All right, does everybody understand that? All right. We did a community survey. So we put this online survey out there to community members, staff, and students, and they were all able to participate. We had a pretty decent turnout. Some common things were student safety, so the entrances to the buildings, more classrooms, bigger classrooms, taxes, the gym and the auditorium locations and capacities, parking, and getting everything to a single campus. Those were some of the results we saw on that. We then started to present these concepts that had costs attached to them. We did what we call this sticky dot approach. So we gave everybody a green dot for what they liked. We gave them a red dot for the one that they would absolutely throw away. And we gave them a blue dot for maybe a second choice. So this has helped then inform the plans as we've continued to evolve to try and get everything that everybody wants, and then also address all of the needs that the school has. So that brought us to the last meeting where we really put out there options with a set construction cost and what that means to you from a tax standpoint. So we presented an option A, which was a $7 million option, had a $0 tax change to you. So as a taxpayer, your impact was $0 on an annual basis. We presented an option B that was an $8.5 million project. That had a 50-cent increase. And option C, as a $10 million option, had a $1 increase. Those options, so on your $7 million option, we were able to get the classroom addition at the elementary building to handle the pre-K programs. We were able to do the administration area changes. At the high school, we were able to get a standalone CTE building developed here at this campus. We had a little bit of accessible bathroom work at the old gym, the 1951 gym, and we had a little bit of work at the football field, mostly from a bleacher standpoint, because that's kind of identified as the immediate need there. That was your $7 million option. That was the no change in your tax rate. The option B, which you will also see us talk about here again tonight, has not changed. You get the same renovations at the elementary building. We do just a little bit more on the interior area where there's some accessibility needs in the middle of the building. We have parking at the high school campus. We have the standalone building for the CTE, the secure entrance, a little bit more work at the football field with parking, sidewalks, actual work to the field itself, and then the 1951 gym gets the bathrooms. Option C, which was $10 million, this was the largest scope, added some renovation work to the Cowboy Cafe, which is the lunch area at the elementary school building. Had the parking, had a standalone CTE building, but we also traded some dollars around to get a gymatorium here. So this had the gym, a new gym added to this building, more of a practice type gym. Had a stage attached to that, so you could have, as we called it, the gymatorium option. So that trades work at your 1951 facility for work here at this campus, bringing that arts and that stage performance area over here to this campus, and then a very similar scope at the football field. So that option got a lot of comments at the last meeting on, can we do this, can we do that, what about trading this? We really need to address drainage on the track. So we took a poll. The poll that we took was a live poll. People were using their phones to be able to interact with this, and we were really trying to get the input from the community on which option do you support from a dollars standpoint, so how it affects you as a taxpayer. Because we know that at this stage, this is very early concepting. We're not going to hit all of the design and the adjacencies correct. We just don't have the time to be able to do that for you. But if we can get the components and generally what they cost, we have a lot of ability to move things around if the community approves, if the school board decides to proceed with a bond vote and then the community supports that, then we can really dive into the details and get all those correct for you. But in this process with the live poll, the option 3, which was the blue option, then $10 million option, again, it had the greatest response from the community that was in attendance at that meeting. So we asked several questions to try and gather input in different directions. Those questions generally led forward with agreeing to go with the higher cost and the greater scope for what it can do to the school itself. So we asked about, would you support option 1? No. Would you support option 2, yellow, the $8.5 million? Again, more no's than yes. When you get to the, would you support the option 3, the blue option at $10 million? Overwhelmingly, yes, that's the direction that the community and those that attended the last meeting, that's the direction they wanted to go. So that brings us to tonight. So we want to make sure that everybody really understands the scope of the project, what is being included at this point in moving forward with an option, what that means to you as a taxpayer, and trying to get another process to gather additional consensus from the public here. So you will see the engagement piece tonight. We've given you a paper handout this time to vote on. At the end of the meeting, we're going to ask you to do a similar thing. Which one of these do you support? Which one of these things do you think that the school board should support moving forward? We'd like you to check which option you like. If you don't like either of them, you don't have to provide a piece of paper. You can turn it over and write a comment on it if you want us to have a comment, or if you think we need to really hit something else. But tonight, we'd really like to be able to reinforce the direction that was given at the last meeting, either with the $10 million option and the changes that we've added to that, or if we were way off base and that's not where you want to go, the school board wants to be able to hear that based on your comments here tonight. So I'm going to let David here run through the options again so that you can hear what each option has for the cost that's proposed. And then also, he's going to really address on option D some of the changes that we heard from the last meeting.
So first page of your handout, option B, this is going to be identical to what we saw at the last meeting for anyone there. In that, you've got elementary school changes, which included the pre-K addition, shifting the admin area and to the south side and a new entrance, and renovating that southeast corner. You're also raising the library floor to make it accessible. At the 1951 gym, you've got restroom upgrades and then general upgrades to the HVAC systems there. Over at the high school, we had an added vestibule that would be a secure lock vestibule. It would basically come off the principal's office over there, and it would expand the commons by a little bit. It included some renovations in one of the classrooms on the other side of the building, a standalone CTE that included automotive, workshop, welding, just like they have now, but also had a few additional classrooms in it. And that could be positioned anywhere, but for the sake of this diagram, it was across the parking lot. And then finally, and that also included an expanded parking lot to the north side out here. And then at the existing football field, there was plans to replace the field with new grading and drainage, irrigation, site utilities, building new bleachers, press box, restroom upgrades, and then handicap parking, sidewalk, and an additional gravel lot, as well as fencing. So then, if you turn that to option D, option D is taking what we heard from the last meeting, the kind of key high-level points that people had issues with, and trying to reconcile that into a new option that we think addresses the majority of the concerns within the budget. So in this option, you've got an identical elementary school upgrade configuration, and the one kind of additional piece on here in green, anything in green would be a bid day alternate, and that's basically if we go ahead with the bond, we draw up the project, it goes out to bid. If we have a good day and the contractors come back with great pricing, it's below what we are estimating it will be, and we have money left over to spend, we're going to have several ad alternates that are already drawn through that we could immediately, with the community, the school board could decide, okay, we've got X amount of dollars left over, we're going to take this and add them to the project, and they become part of the scope. But for the baseline that's included in this $10 million number, anything in green on here is not included in that scope. You go down to the existing football field and track, and one of the biggest comments we heard from last time was we need to fix the track, that it's in bad shape. We heard that, so we had to move some dollars around from different areas in order to get that, but this option D includes a new all-weather 6-lane track, slot drainage around the perimeter. This still includes some restroom upgrades, fence, new bleachers, press box, and then the same work with the football field. And then over at the high school, there was a couple changes here that we took from some of the commentary last time. One of those was getting the CTE attached to the high school. That was a big sticking point. We already have people walking outside to get to the portables, going across town to get to the current CTE. We want to have it all in one building. So we heard that, and we're attaching it as part of a larger CTE gymnatorium edition. In that, you've got a bank of restrooms, you've got the automotive, welding, and workshop. And then one of the other comments we heard from last time was the configuration of the music room, which has kind of a narrow proportion right now, and isn't very user-friendly for the music students. So getting a better proportion with that and a better relationship to a stage that's within that gymnatorium, that was important to include. So now what had to get subtracted from that $10 million option to get the track and everything I discussed at the high school, that included the Cowboy Cafe, which I already mentioned, which was in the previous $10 million option, and the parking addition to the north. Now, both of those are still included as bid day alternates, so they could very well come back in the project if we have a good day. And then the final bid day alternate that we had on here was an addition of some additional meeting conference rooms at the high school, which are in short supply. So that was kind of a third bid day alternate. In kind of summary for that option D, we're subtracting a Cowboy Cafe renovation and the parking to gain the attached CTE, the track, restroom upgrades at the existing field, and the configuration of the music room. And that kind of brings us back into the $10 million range and hopefully addresses a lot of your concerns.
The cost impact of each one of these then, to just go back through that, $8.5 million is a 50-cent increase on your levy rate. There are some examples that are on here. if you were to look on the back side under the residential property, so if you have a home in the rural area, the average rural assessed value, now this is assessed, not appraised, so this is just the taxable value, not what you would sell it for. The assessed value, it would increase your taxes $2.28 a month or $27.34 a year. That is the option B, the $8.5 million option. And again, those numbers are based on the current, it's an increase over the current fiscal year levy rate. I told you earlier that your average at $13.88 is almost $1 over where you're at currently with today's rate. Your option D, which is the new option presented here tonight. Your option D, if you look again on the back page, you can use that same rural assessed value at $125,000. So if you have a home in the rural area, the average assessed value is that $125,000. That increases your monthly payment on your taxes around $5.32 or annually $63.80. So again, compared to your 10-year average, this option puts you right even with your 10-year average. It is $1 increase over your current year levy rate. Before we jump into any of the polling piece, I want to make sure that everybody has a chance to ask some questions. We'll try and get you answered either whether they're construction budget, design. If you get really deep in the financial questions, we'll have to get Mr. Hood back up here to try and answer those for you.
And one important thing to reinforce, if we decide to go ahead with the bond measure for either of these options, this would define the general scope of the project, but that does not mean that a classroom can't be moved from here to here. It's just defining the overall scope.
Yes.
I have a question. On option D, this print is really tiny for my eyes to see. And I don't see it up there. Over on the addition on the high school, it's green and it's this little rectangle. That's a conference room?
Yep.
Okay. So
My glasses were better than
Question.
Yes.
On the ag land, I'm not sure how to read the chart, I guess. Let's say hypothetically, and I don't care which option it is, I have D in front of me. Hypothetically, you own an acre of land in Prairie Township. And the average value was, what, $2,300 an acre. Assessed value of $1,261. What would be the tax increase on that acre?
If you go to the right further on that table,
4 cents?
that's a monthly, and then this is an annual per acre.
So it increased 50 cents an acre per year at a value of $23.70.
And those numbers are from the assessor,
Right.
so that I think is.
Yeah,
the
pretty
average.
accurate, yeah. Okay.
So yes, you would multiply that times however many acres you own in
Okay.
that area.
Another
Yes.
question, sorry. On the gymnatorium and the music department, and we've had discussions before on that. So the music room is separate from the gymnatorium, but
Yes.
it's attached with a doorway?
Yes.
Oh, that's. Is there an outside door then from the music room that could be put on there to move equipment in and out?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
So just so everyone can hear that, previously the music room was combined with the stage. It was all one space. Now there's a separate music room and stage.
I think there were, yes, sir.
As I look at this, you've got this budget increase in finances set up for 22 years. So that increase would end at 22 years or what?
Correct.
Okay, what happens when the DNR takes a bunch of ground and it's untaxable?
deal with the stuff I have in front of us kind of thing.
Well, I understand that, but
the tax increase that's being proposed is the increase that is there regardless. You have obviously property tax valuations, you have property value fluctuations that are completely outside of the school's control. You also have at least two other taxing entities, probably three down here, with the city, the county, and then you probably have an emergency management that has levying authority also down here.
I understand that, but we're talking about, for example, $10 million. And the tax off of, just for example, I'll say 5,000 acres that the DNR takes. Then where's that money gonna come to make up 10 million? Because the DNR will not be paying tax on it.
I said, don't just throw it on the ag land, it says the value higher, farm will pay for it.
Right. The DNR takes 5,000.
Is there anything in there for maintenance?
In the budget,
Yeah.
yeah, the budget that was put together by Piper Jaffray. That is the school's financial consultant. And so over the course of this 22 years, you're not taking from anything else that the school operates with. So there's still money in there for one-to-one computer programs, bus and vehicle purchases, maintenance. It also included a enrollment projection number that was incredibly conservative. And I believe I did not bring that slide. I should have brought that slide from the previous meeting, but it does have the enrollment projections, all of those things to, the point of doing this is not to ever put a school district in a very bad situation. So they have their conservative formulas that they pile on for that, so. Yes, sir.
Do we have an estimate on the lifespan of the elementary gym if we do not do anything to it versus if we do the upgrades to it?
So the current gym, the 1951 gym, if you did everything that you should do to that facility, you're going to spend an incredible amount of money and still have a 1951 gym. Your biggest issues over there right now from a code standpoint would be accessibility. So I've described this as you can use it until you can't anymore, right? So from a life safety standpoint, the fire alarm still works. There's just a heating system, there's no air conditioning. You could get to a point where you have to invest some money in an accessible bathroom in order to keep using that facility. If you choose not to do that, then you are likely not able to hold any events there at that point. But that is something that as we've gone through these exercises with the community here, the emphasis is more on spending the money on a gymatorium here to make up for that gym, that 1951 gym you have. Yes.
Have you looked at the old bond that paid for this school?
Have we looked at it?
Well, have you studied enough to get information on when that bond was satisfied, how much did the taxes go down? And then how will that look in 22 years when this is paid for?
I would have to defer to Tim on that.
Do we have any relief from that old bond being satisfied?
I believe they voted in the voting capital at that point, there wasn't a change in tax.
There was a little bit of relief even after the voted pebble.
Say it again?
There was relief even after the voted pebble.
It did go down a little bit, Brian, but at the same time that the old bond was being paid off, we had that voted pebble, which almost made up the difference of what
what was the purpose at that time?
Well, because at that time, we didn't have any things set aside for major improvements. We knew we were gonna have some big improvements coming with this building getting to be the age it was. So that's kind of why we put that before the public, and it was a public vote, but we knew that we were gonna be needing some money to do these types of things.
There were two things voted on at that time, what was it?
It was-
Pebble and,
And, well, Matt was up because he was appointed, so he had to run again. I think that was it, wasn't it?
no, it was kind of, we voted for two things on one ballot.
Well, it was maybe the income surtax.
And is that maxed out also, or?
Yes.
So we're maxed out on Pebble and the income surtax. Okay. So that was kind of designed to be used as a rainy day fund, if you will?
Well,
Well,
yeah,
and also,
yes,
we dodged a bullet on that too, because we were looking at the roof repair on this building, and that was gonna be roughly a couple $100,000. And we ended up having a storm come through, help us out there, and we got a roof on it.
So how come we weren't able to save money at that time? Through, how many years was that one? 20. And we couldn't establish any kind of a surplus for those 20 years to fix a roof? So we go to the taxpayers and we ask them for more money for the rainy day things. So where are we gonna be 10 years into this? When are we gonna start asking for more? When this thing starts to wear out. You can only tax the poor so long, and then we're all poor. And then we're looking for other options. Those are my concerns. That's why I asked about maintenance.
Yeah, absolutely, maintenance is an important piece, and I would say, just through our discussions with Josh here, that you guys do an incredible job on the maintenance of your facilities that you can. One piece, by combining your campuses into this fewer and newer scenario, gets you to a point where you do have less facility to maintain. You're always gonna, as a school district, you're always gonna have major improvements, probably every 20 to 30 years that you do have to look at. It is rare to find a school that is in a healthy position that does not have some sort of voter-approved levy on their school district at that time. You guys do not, because you paid yours off several years ago. A healthy school district constantly knows that you cannot be in a point where you're not having the funds to continually improve those buildings, whether it's the replacement of the roofs or upgrade your technology. That is often why you see these bond issues and these improvements in these bigger pieces at that time. So a project like this takes care of a lot of those issues that we see that are the immediate, but it does not, we're not coming in and building brand new schools throughout the entire district either.
I'm trying to answer the question back here. So what I'm telling the community, the people that are here, is we've had this discussion as a board that we do not want to be in a situation again where we don't have that. So what we're asking you to do, if we move forward with this, is there will be a rainy day fund that we're working on moving forward, okay? So that we don't run into those things again. So that's been part of this conversation. It's been part of this conversation from the absolute first conversation we had.
What other questions do we have here? Yes, sir.
On the track, did you explore options of improving that track and decide that that wasn't worth it, or just the new track only? What were the options?
So as a design and construction team, we did look at that. I mean, it is, the problems that exist with your track, with the drainage, you're taking care of 3/4 of your, of the cost, regardless of whether you go back with a cinder track or you go back with your all-weather track. That's why the all-weather track is included. It's a better long-term solution for you.
I just noticed in the larger one that we lost parking becomes a maybe
Parking is not a safety issue. What we heard at the last meeting was the track was a safety issue, and so that's how that got prioritized over the park.
And the cost of moving the whole road track out here is much, much more.
It's just not, it'd be a great way to do that, but it's just not possible without sacrificing other pieces that are also
Well, I'll tell you
prioritized.
about investing that here, down there, there's not, but again, no parking for that football field. Everywhere you go in our district, you need that parking.
I'm sure we could offer naming rights to somebody who wants to write a check for about $1.5 million to put the football field out here. Yes, sir.
Is that where the fence is planned on being put in on the west side? Because that looks like a big practice area, but essentially where you have that infield drawn, we can't practice on it because of the hump that's there. So we can't go across it. So if you put a fence in there, you're really gonna cut down what we have.
So
for
I'd
a
say
practice
that,
area.
I'd say that we have X amount of linear feet of fence budgeted. We would work with all of those who have an opinion on where that should go to make sure we get it in the right spot.
And the intention is to have another round of focus groups following these meetings, and that's where we can fine tune it.
Who owns the baseball diamond? School or the city? School owns baseball diamond. Would it be cheaper to make that parking lot than that area you got highlighted north and west of the ball diamond? School don't need another.
Yeah, it's
Got two out here.
used for youth sports and football practice at the moment. So
They'll take that from it.
Fence in because it's all over the track.
there's a couple issues that brought the fence up. I think one of them was that you have people driving on the field. Is that right? And just kind of general security.
And what happens to the old, CT building or whatever?
The old CTE building, right now there's no improvements that are planned for that. Again, that options that have been explored or discussed for use of that outside of any of the bond measure would be for maintenance, any type of equipment repair, wrestling, and then to still have the locker room space for the football field.
When, on the option D, what is that area going to be? I'm just curious as to why there's basically just a hallway connecting that addition to the main building. What's the purpose in that?
So
Is it less expensive?
It is less expensive. We want to maintain windows in the classrooms whenever possible. And then this new addition that attaches to this building will require what we call a firewall. And so that the less we touch this existing building, the less firewall we have to build, which means more cost-effective construction and dollars that can go into square footage.
Okay. Thank you.
It seems like we're getting, on the $10 million option, we're getting a lot more for $1.5 million more dollars. What are we losing? What's the big ticket item on option B that we're losing in order to gain so much on option B?
The option B includes about $1 million in the 1951 gym.
$1 million?
Yep.
Okay. For what? That makes sense. That makes sense. I couldn't figure it out, but that makes sense.
So by using the existing building in high school, we couldn't use an exterior wall to connect like the CTE building. It would actually cost more to connect the CTE building to an existing exterior wall of the current high school.
Right. The CTE, the construction types that are being proposed are different construction types, so we need to build 4 walls for the CTE or the gymatorium. You're not saving anything by trying to shove it up against the existing school and use a wall of the outside wall as a new wall for the CTE. Yes. Yes.
On the option D, are you thinking the gymatorium would be used for most sporting events?
No. The gymatorium does not replace your current gym.
No, I realize that. But if it was, what would be the cost to put a concession stand around that? Because we'd be able to block off this building so there would be no access if there was something going on in that new place. And we wouldn't have to worry about safety in this building. What would the cost be to put a room there that we could use as a concession, alternate, whatever?
Sure. We have looked at those. I don't know the exact cost of a concession stand. The size of that gym currently is really only a size for practices or small games. So the number of seats in there are 600 total seats. When all of the bleachers are pulled out, when the bleachers on the north side of that are pulled out, it does come out onto the gym floor, and that is designed to then, so that you've got seating for the auditorium or the stage piece.
What are the little squares that you can't see on the stage? What are those?
So I recognize this isn't a final design, but it looks like you did incorporate concessions at least into it conceptually. The little corner down there has a room that says concession.
Yeah, this piece right here, this tiny little box in there, was earmarked for something like concessions, equipment storage. And what were you? Oh yeah. So those are fixed bleachers. These actually pull out and fold.
So the stage is between 2 fixed bleachers?
Yes.
That would look out on what?
Onto the court for JV games, for example.
Yes.
Do you have an itemized list of costs for specific projects? Like someone mentioned, Erica mentioned, you don't do the gym, how much money does it save you? I was thinking, when you start looking at something, you think, I just need to make a change there, or cut this, or put more money towards this. Do you have an itemized list? Say, for example, like Brian brought up the track, compared to parking, how much does it cost to?
So yes, we have gone through that exercise a number of ways and a number of times. The risk you run in, just presenting an itemized list is there's always things that build upon each other that affect those costs. That is why we've ended up with the option D with the alternates, because there are some alternates in there that generally can be designed as standalone or have costs that are related or switchable to other things. So to make the gym bigger, we've looked at that. You just don't have the funds without taking something else away that is of equal importance, whether it's the size of the CTE building or additional renovations or not providing some classrooms to get rid of the portables.
Okay,
Yes,
question
ma'am.
for you, on the gymatorium. The bleachers that are next to the stage,
Yes.
are those also collapsible? So that could be all stage, or are those set and permanent?
Sure. At this stage, they could be whatever we want them to be. If they need to be collapsible, and you could bring in additional portable stage to make it bigger, you could certainly do that.
So the gymatorium, how does the size compare to our 51 gym as far as seating? I mean, I know you said there were 600 seats in there. How does that compare to the elementary gym? Because I'm just thinking the concerts that we have down there and everything, that place is packed. I don't know how much it holds.
There's a few more out there right now. I don't know the exact number.
Okay.
I'd say it's closer to 700. You'll also be able to fill up the floor, and I think we could through kind of the focusing process on this, if we determined that it was more desirable to put more of the bleachers on the north side facing the stage, that's something we could certainly look at. Just have a longer telescopic bleacher. We were trying to balance that with having some bleachers on the south side that would leave the gym court open for games there.
And that was my other question is, if you were gonna have a game there, and I understand the bleachers come out on the floor, how much space would there be for people that could actually have the game in there? Obviously, it's not the whole 600.
No. I mean, you'd pull out 3 or 4 rows of bleachers on the one side, and then on the plan south here, you have bleachers on each side of the stage, and that's what you would have for if there was to be a game in that spot. What we've seen other schools do is you just flop a practice around with a game. So if you have middle school kids that, let's say it's a game night where you're going to go from junior high all the way through high school varsity games, and maybe it's girls and the boys need to practice, you're just flopping so that practices are happening in the smaller gym and all your competitions still happen in your main gym. As far as auditorium sizes, the high schools in the surrounding area, you have a Shenandoah that has a true auditorium that has around 550 seats in their auditorium. The auditorium at the Red Oak High School is around 600, and those seem to work well. If they get to a point where they are at capacity, they add multiple shows for their events. So it's right at 6:55 here. We've been here for about an hour. We will hang around and answer any more questions that you may have. We would really like you to participate in the poll. If you don't have a pen, we've got a couple extras up here. We will collect your responses up here. We will go through and count them here tonight and post some results.
Text him or whatever. Email him.
Anybody else vote that on that? I gotta count them. I think we have stuff tallied, okay? What was the scores, or what's the tally here?
We have 42 on the option D, $10 million options.
How many?
42. And we have two here that are for option B, or no tax increase. 3.
So, any questions before I ask you to do something else? I know you're ready to go home. Okay? So, one of the things we have to do to move this process forward is we have to collect people that are certified voters in the school district to put this on a ballot. Okay? So if you would like, you can do that tonight. Very simple. You sign your name, you put your address, no P.O. box. It's a P.O. box, it gets kicked out in today's date. So if you're interested in doing that, I have sheets up here. Please come up and do that, and that'll help us get this on the ballot, hopefully for April 2nd. Okay? And if you have nothing else, again, appreciate you very much coming out tonight, and stay warm.